also said, and we agree with that. So I don't really see your point. Another thing what we said is that money is power, and sportsmen who earn a huge amount of money, they don't really worth sometimes the same amount as, for example, sustainable job-giving person like a scientist. What scientists do for job, their country can keep their job and the goods of their job, so the country gets way more advantages than sportsmen, and this is why we think that people value them too much compared, for example, with a scientist or a teacher. So yes, sir.
Events like the Beijing Olympics generated hundreds of thousands of dollars for the economy and gave jobs to people. If sports can do that for the community, why are you placing it at a lower level and calling it immoral for people to spend money on sports?
First of all, I don't think that sports can do the same. Of course, we can import a huge amount of money in sports to children and such, but so they won't be, if they won't be a sportsman, professional sportsman, they won't really give anything back to their country by this. So another thing that connects with this, that we don't say that sports are not good. We agree with that sports are valuable, but not this level. What we can give many examples, for example, Tiger Woods or Cristiano Ronaldo. So we said that through advertising, sometimes we get bad role models. For example, Tiger Woods, so the behavior of sportsmen can be very effective and very bad sometimes. So they become famous and they become idols, but youngsters won't get really much benefit that the country can get back from the youngsters in time. So this is why we believe that very much amount of sportsmen's action are not as valuable as many other jobs. We don't really need to give you options that what kind of jobs we mean, but we do, for example, we give doctors and such, but it's not all just about helping people with healthcare and saving lives. So this is not the only importance. And we set the criteria that we're not talking about pro sportsman who does not have immortally high wages. So this is very important. I think that, of course, society decides what means immoral and what does not. So I think that we can still state our motion that the wages of professional sportsmen are immorally high.
Thank you very much for that speech, and we move back to the side of the opposition, welcoming the third speaker.
I have to admit that I'm rather confused at what side proposition considers immoral wage. But down the line, we've told you a consistent stance. The moral wage is something that justifies the contribution to society, that is proportional to the sacrifices of these sportsmen, and reflects the importance that the society places upon these sports people. And so we've brought you ideas that champions this moral wage. So in that light, we're going to ask two questions. Firstly, what makes it a moral wage? And secondly, is sports valuable? Now, firstly, on the idea of what makes a moral wage, the first try to tell us that immoral wages are anything above the average wage in society. But this doesn't even make sense. Because of meritocracy, we realize that people have different skills and different contributions to society. So there's no There's no sense in paying them exactly the same wages through an idea of an average wage. And furthermore, the calculation of an average wage means you take the highest wages and the lowest income earners and you form an average out of that equation. So it means that because you put the average wage at the maximum wage, what happens is that your average wage infinitely regresses further downwards and downwards and downwards until everyone is paid minimum wage, and that doesn't even make sense. It's not a practical economic model to follow. And furthermore, we're also told, they tried to tell us that the immoral wages are only paid when they are higher than other jobs that directly contribute to society. And here they gave us examples of saving lives, like doctors and teachers. But we told you that first of all, the morality we're talking about here has to be absolute. Just because these people are being paid more by doctors and lawyers doesn't mean that their pay isn't justified. And we think that if you really think that doctors and lawyers and teachers aren't being paid as much, the solution then isn't to lower the wages of sportsmen, is to increase the wages of these people that you're fighting for. And that ultimately creates a more equal society that they're fighting for instead. And even if sportsmen do have higher wages than the people who directly contribute to society, the reason why they're being paid more is because they reach a greater number of people. So fine, we can conceive that doctors and teachers have a greater direct contribution to society, but the fact of the matter is sportsmen are global household names and all over the world, whereas doctors and lawyers only affect those within their communities. And therefore, the inspirational value that sports people and sportsmen give to these people are far greater and far more meaningful in terms of their respect. And that is why society, in terms of the media coverage, in the way that they're celebrated, in the way that they're prized and therefore paid, it's reflected in that step to the valuation of the good that they provide to the whole global community, rather than just the areas in which they are localized in. And furthermore, we told you that the high wages keep the sports industry going. So down the line, we've heard concession after concession after how the sports industry can be helpful to humanity, after how the sports industry is inspirational and how that's a good thing. But we told you that the only reason why it's such an inspirational and such a good thing to society now is because it's fueled by money. That money allows the sports industry to reach a greater impact. I'll take you in a minute, sir. That money allows sportsmen to create charities and have a greater impact in their home countries. And that is why we allow sports people to have such high wages. Yes, sir.
So basically you mentioned that the solution to this problem is to increase the wage of doctors and lawyers, and that way we can make it equal. So you agree that at the moment sportsmen's wage is unequal, and what's it?
So we agree it's unequal, but the problem is that inequality is perfectly justified. It's not immoral in any sense, it's merely a reflection of how much more good these sportsmen have to these people. Furthermore, we've told you down the line, they've never dealt with, first of all, the high wages are recompense for the sacrifices that sportsmen have to go through. We told you about the short window of time in which these sportsmen have the capacity to earn money, which is something they haven't dealt with. We think that because of the short window of time, if you don't give them high wages then, that means that they can't sustain themselves in their lives, that means that they will become jobless and therefore become a greater burden to society if we don't give them high wages. Secondly, it's an incentive for sports talent. So it's a recognition of the inherent ability of them to be different from everybody else and recognize that to nurture that individualistic talent regardless of the ability of what their value judgment is to society. So we think that it's unfair for them to say that it's only fair for direct contributions in terms of saving lives when such other non-empirical values can also be added on to society. And lastly, we say that allow sports to give back to society through charitable institutions, something I've already talked about. Then let me move on now to my second question on what's the value of sports within society. They first tried to tell us that sports doesn't directly contribute to social good. But we told you that's not true. Sportsmen have great direct impact. They're able to inspire lives. The entire country of Brazil is catered around the whole idea of football heroes, the local stories of people who rose up from the slums and became national heroes because of sports and because of sporting talent. And therefore, sportsmen have a direct benefit to people and how they are uplifted out of the poverty industry. No, thank you, sir. Furthermore, we told them that the definition of direct influence to society is too narrow a definition for contribution to societal good because it cuts out a lot of other industries. books, music, movies, literature, all these other entertainment industries that bring us so much value to our human condition, that bring us so much moral satisfaction in being human beings and being civilized, are being cut out because they only recognize the direct observable impacts of these values. And lastly, we told you that sports is extremely special because it's tied towards a nationalistic idea. It's tied towards the passionless and accessibility of sports to these people. Sports is distinct from every other entertainment business because it celebrates the human body. It celebrates the potentiality of the body that every one of us is given. And that is why people are so passionate about sports, because it's something that we can do and it reflects the possibility within ourselves. Furthermore, sports is often linked to nationalistic ideas. When people go out there, they represent their countries and they represent the clubs and towns that they believe in, that they live in. This results in greater forms of idealization, greater promotion of passion within these people, which leads to positive change as well. Furthermore, I'm going to extend this by saying the inspiration it provides to you is just as valuable as directly saving lives. And why is this so? When we see that we directly save lives, it means that we make a positive contribution, as we talked about, to people's futures, to people's well-being in later years. And we see that sports provides just that, no thank you madam, just that impact as well. Because when we have that inspiration for further years, it means that people are motivated to go into the sporting industry for the long run. It means that people are willing to train and sacrifice to promote the ideas of passion, determination, tenacity, and acceptance that sports all encompasses and therefore promotes. Furthermore, as a last year, I'm going to push to you that sports can also directly influence, even if it's the very narrow definition of direct contribution to society, sports fulfills that as well. So we see this in how sports can push economies of countries forward. We see this in the tourist revenue in Beijing Olympics reached $2.3 billion, and that sportsmen contribute best to the economy to their country directly within this field. If you put them in any other profession, they wouldn't have such an impact, but it's precisely in sports they found a niche market. It's precisely in sports, and precisely because they paid so much, they're able to push for such great societal goal. So why have I shown you this today? Firstly, I've shown you that the idea of morality is absolute, just because it cannot be compared to other professions and how they're being paid. Second of all, I've shown you that sports is special and valuable simply because of its ability to inspire others, not through the direct contact of that they try to define in their case. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that speech. And to conclude the debate for the side of the opposition, we vote the opposition with Vice Speaker.
I'm going to take you through a walk of a person who wants to find a job in their world, and then I'm going to take you through a walk of a person who wants to find a job in our world. Now, in their world, a person who wanted to find a job wouldn't be able to differentiate themselves. Because no matter how hard he worked, no matter how hard he studied, and no matter how hard he trained, if he found that his talent was in a sport, was in running, was in kicking a ball, or was in batting a ball, he would never be able to differentiate himself. Because no one would be able to be rewarded for their skills. Instead, wages would be dependent upon an average in society, where everybody should have the same wage, where everybody and nobody deserve to be differentiated, even though this would be highly unfair, even though this would be unmeritocratic, and even though this would be unfair to sportsmen who they themselves train and perfect their skills in order to be paid the amount that they're paid. Because as we've shown you, sportsmen at a higher professional level who do even better than others are paid more than other sportsmen who play at a less professional level and are less successful. But then their world changed. And their world didn't become about equality and everyone having the same amount of wages. Their world became about the amount that someone can directly contribute to society. But what this meant was that despite the fact that individuals did contribute to society in less direct ways, it was immoral to pay them more. So it was immoral for sportsmen to be paid more, even though they sustained a multi-million-dollar industry, which we showed was beneficial to society and providing jobs and providing entertainment. And yet they said, and they shifted even again, and they said, the only contribution that counts isn't just a direct contribution. It has to be about directly saving lives. Now this didn't show why sportsmen should be paid any less. It didn't show why it was immoral to pay sportsmen what they did. It only showed that people who did save lives should be paid more. And so that was arbitrary and that was wrong. All they showed was that doctors and firemen should be paid more. They never showed why sportsmen should be morally paid. And yet this was also in itself immoral because it discriminated against people in choosing what they wanted to do. Because in their world, people who decided to go into another area, who decided to go into another job that didn't necessarily protect people and save their lives, like firemen or doctors, as noble as they were condemned as being people who are being immorally paid as long as they were paid more as these doctors and firemen. So bankers who helped money flow through the economy, and sportsmen who provided entertainment that society demanded were labeled immoral by them and were said to be unfairly treated. Then they said sportsmen were bad influencers, but yet they ignored the fact that precisely because of the high wages they're being paid and the publicity they get, they are punished even more harshly to ensure that they are positive influencers and they are projecting a good image to the world. So that was their world, and that was the experience that a person who was finding a job had to go through in their world. Our world was a far brighter one, because in our world, individuals could differentiate themselves and they could stand above the crowd based on the amount of skill they had and the amount of talent that they put in. In our world, morality wasn't based on a very narrow idea of what you do, and if you're not saving lives, that's wrong and that's immoral to pay you more. Our world, morality was based on what society determined to be what it needed, and if an individual could actually provide that for society, which was in itself a noble aim, because it provided a good that society wanted, and it did something that society deemed to be fit and to be valuable. In our world, that was moral and that was fine. In our world, allowing yourself to train and to have the ultimate perfection of skills and therefore be rewarded even more for that was okay and it was moral, even though it wasn't in their world. In our world, we showed why sports became something which benefited people, which benefited lives and pushed forward values like anti-racism, like battling against poverty, like raising funds for cancer patients, precisely because sportsmen were paid more and given a more powerful platform to their wages. At the end of the day, it was only one side which actually showed what morality really meant and stuck to it. And that has to be the side which understood this motion more and fought for it all the way through.
Thank you very much. And to conclude this debate as a whole, we welcome the Vice Speaker from the side of the government.
First of all, I would like to tell again our arguments and then why our statement still stays. So, our arguments were, the first one was that sportsmen don't do much for the community purposes. You said that they do for that they are giving, that they have a great effect on countries, for example in Brazil, and then you said that with this the economy will be better. Well, we don't agree because, well, look Brazil, your example. In Brazil, yes, there is good football, but the economy is bad. So I don't think that football pushes countries or sport pushes countries forward just because they have talented sport players. Doesn't mean that the economy will be better or the lives of the people will be better. So you said that we only just compared jobs and didn't say why they shouldn't get that big amount of money. Well, they did. We said first they didn't do much for the community, and yes, we compared them with other jobs because it's important to see that other jobs should be higher valued, and while they should get more money than or maybe equal money, but we still think that the sportsmen shouldn't get as much money as they are getting. And then we didn't answer that, we didn't react that argument which we said that they take away money from the country because they don't pay enough taxes. They don't pay as much taxes as we do, or the normal citizens do, and they have no profit for the country. We said that, yes, So you didn't answer this one, but you said that this sport will make the economy better, like this one, like in the Brazil example. And then you said that lawyers and doctors are getting more money, while they don't. They, in most countries, they're not getting as money as professional football players. And we also said that because not that they are more valued than other people, because not just because of the money, but money plays a big part in this valuing. So we didn't say that everyone should save a life, and we didn't say that everybody should be a doctor or a teacher. We just said that the sportsmen are the wages of sportsmen are enormously high compared to what they do. And yeah, so and you also said that entertaining is the same value of life saving, but I don't agree with that. And our task was today to debate on the wage of professional sportsmen, but it seemed that you were just trying to say that why sport is so important and why it has such a big value. Well, I agree it has a big value, but not as big, not as big that what the money they are getting. So I think they are not getting that. So they are getting too much money compared to what they do. And you also said that sportsmen or sport is getting a lot of viewers, but it wasn't an argument, so I don't see why, if they're getting a lot of viewers, why they should get more money. So we still think that the other team was debating about the importance of sport, but we will be debating about the immorally high wages of sportsmen. So I think our argument stays still, and our team still thinks that the wages of professional sportsmen are immortal.